Hi. Hi. Hi, folks. My name is Michael, and I've been going to GCC for a couple of years now. And this is the story. This is just a small bit of my story of how I came to know God in a personal way. So, I grew up in a Christian home, and actually, my dad was a pastor. As weird as it sounds, but my family was far from perfect, and I actually had a hard time believing that there was a good God in all the trouble that I had growing up. And so in arriving to college, I was finally free from the pressure of my family and could openly question God and doubt him. So I was really uncertain about coming to church, but I decided to give it a shot, and I just dealt with all the questions that I had. But the answers started coming slowly, and I remember reading Luke 9. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet lose or forfeit their own soul? So I read this, and I didn't quite understand it that well, but I asked God to challenge me and to help me let go of the world, to give it all to him, and to test me and teach me to live by faith in him alone. So I stayed with the church for a while, but to sum up a long story, the church I entered college in, and I didn't get along. So I walked away from church for a while, and my doubts continued to grow. My sophomore year, I started throwing out my old life and living it up. I was new to the party scene, and I was determined to make up for all the lost time. I was having a blast, making connections, and really just feeling good. But going into junior year, the euphoria started to fade. Something was still tugging at my heart, and I came to the realization that most of my friendships that I had gained were superficial and really dependent upon how well I maintained my cool status. These friendships were based on a version of myself that I was hiding behind, and I wanted to take off that mask and to love someone deeply and freely without putting up any fronts, but I couldn't. Strangely enough, I felt the need to come back to church. Maybe it was my upbringing. I remembered an old friend who had attended GCC, and slowly I got around to reconnecting with him. And I asked if I could try out GCC. I remember walking into that first GCC service and looking around at all the people. I could feel the deer in the headlights look on my face. After having not been in church so long, I never felt so out of place in my life. But it was nice to have a friend nearby, and slowly I focused less on partying and more on God. Instead of partying on Saturday nights, I would carry my red pillow under my arm to Huntsman to study with my friend. And we would study at his place, or at that place, and go to his place afterward and sleep. Then he would wake me up so I could go to service the next morning. And we did that Sunday after Sunday, and I thank God that he was there. So I got plugged into a GCC family group, and I started to get to know the people of my class a little. Now, I was pretty new, and I was still pretty awkward. But I really didn't want people to know who I really was and how the way I had been living. So I tried to come on time more and got rid of my sailor's mouth and tried to be as helpful as possible. I was a real nice guy. And last summer I worked in Boston, spent a lot of time with some GCC alumni and some young working Christians. And it was great. They taught me a lot how to live the Christian lifestyle. But I found myself in an oddly familiar place. That feeling that I was still hiding behind someone, that I wasn't being my true self. Senior year came around, and I quickly got plugged into GCC. I was more determined this year to devote myself, and I was trying to get closer to God and commit myself in every way. I came regularly to family group and service, set up prayer meetings, invested more in people, and I was trying really hard. But still, that feeling wouldn't go away. Something was wrong. Fortunately, at our college retreat just a few months ago, I got to hear Pastor Sam preach. And as he cried out to Jesus, and it just made me really realize that I didn't know God in a personal way. In my search for God, I had come to see him as an object, the Holy Grail, the cure-all that would make everything right. And all this time, I was working so hard to achieve a closeness with God. But it was just a goal, And what I was really doing was pushing God away. I was constantly trying to earn my redemption, trying to make up for my past mistakes, trying to be a good person. But in my pitiful efforts to save myself, I was cheapening God's grace because I wasn't trusting in Jesus' sacrifice and his love. What's more, in my efforts to be holy, I was just as worldly as when I had been away from the church. I was just putting up another front and not being my true self, just to fit in. I recall Luke 9, the verse about, giving up the world and just trusting in God alone. Well, the truth of the matter was that I was still trusting in what people thought. I was still trusting in my own efforts to earn my own salvation. And finally, I came to realize at that retreat that I had had enough. I just wanted God. No more of this, no more of this fakeness. I just want God. So, knowing this, it's been so much more easy to live in God's presence. I know that God is a Father who seeks to have a personal relationship with me. And I know that his love is deep and wide and it burns brightly and passionately for me. Knowing that I can be imperfect, regardless of whether I'm in the church or what lifestyle I'm living outside of the church, it's just comforting to know that God still loves me no matter what. So I'd like to close on this verse. It's Matthew chapter 6. It says, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? I think it's time for me to turn my eyes away from the world or from myself, and just turn my eyes to God and get some of that light. Thanks.